will the clerk please call the roll?
Director Carlskin,
Here.
Director Holden,
Here.
Director Gore, Director Albert,
Here.
Chairwoman Landon,
Here, and welcome to Dan. We're happy to have you tonight.
Happy to be back.
And will the clerk also read the statement of meeting procedures, please?
welcome to the Western Placer Waste Management Authority meeting of October 10th, 2024. Agendas are available on the table outside this meeting room. If you are here to speak on a matter not on the agenda, you may do so during public comment. If the board is not permitted to take action on items addressed under public comment, all items on the agenda will be open for the public to address before final action is taken. Accessibility information is provided on the meeting agenda. Please turn off or put in silent mode all cell phones and other electronic devices. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you, and now is the time for public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to anything that is not on the agenda? Okay, and we're gonna move to item 6, which is closed session.
Thank you, Chair. The board will now adjourn to closed session for the items of closed session action identified on agenda item number 6.
Okay, we are back from closed session, and Mr. Sandman, do you want to read us out?
Thank you, Chair. The board adjourned to closed session on item 6A, real property negotiations. The board heard a report and provided direction to staff. The board did not hear a report nor take any action on item 6B. On item 6C, the board heard a report and provided direction to council. That concludes the closed session report.
Great, thank you. Moving on to item 7A, report from general manager.
Thank you, thank you. It's been a very busy and hot month again here at WATMA, but hopefully we're done with that. Just some brief items to give the board an update on. The MRF continues to be impressive, making progress with the equipment going in. Definitely urge all the board members to come out and take a tour, as board member Albert did. So it was pretty impressive. We did receive the temporary COOs from the county, so the green ASP is in the process of being used/tested, the maintenance building and the C&D facility. The fire sprinkler system and the 3B design are moving forward, and those plans have been submitted. Some other items, we had a large tour of the facility, thanks to our Emily for pulling this off for Calvary Cycle. 30 members of their local assistance and market development team came, and we spent several hours with them showing them the facility, talking about what we're doing here. I think it went very well. The feedback we received was very positive on that tour. We did submit, as I had mentioned at the last meeting, RFP for legal counsel services, and received 4 proposals back. So we're going to be meeting and evaluating those and bringing an item for your review shortly. We did also release an RFP for architect services for our design, build, upgrade of our administrative offices here. So we're excited to see how that comes back in. Eric and I attended a grand opening of Keller Canyon Landfill, which is the first landfill gas to RNG project that has come online in the state, injecting pipeline injectable RNG down in Pittsburgh, and it was very impressive, and we're excited about that opportunity here as we move that along. It was great for me to see what we were looking at and hear about hear some of their stories of the process, and get some contacts for people that will help us through that process. They were very willing to share their experiences, so that was great. We also did, thank you to staff, Eric and Stephanie, who's not here, submit a request for a reimbursement on the grant, the Calvary Cycle Organics grant. So we're working through that process of answering some questions, but we should be receiving $7 million, hopefully at some point very soon, once we work through any questions they have, but that's been going pretty smoothly. And just some other projects that are going on is the biomass project, which we're excited about, bringing an item to the board soon as far as potentially siting a biomass facility here to handle our problematic woody debris, and also create energy that can be used on site or for our partners, our neighbors possibly, including Buzz Oates, we've had some contact with them about possibly providing them some power for their new development project. And there's an odor workshop coming up on, I believe, the 29th of October. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions? All right, I think I have my tour scheduled for coming up soon, so I'm looking forward to it. 7B, financial reports.
Thank you. So your board has the financials through August in your packet, generally tracking above our revenue projections at this point and below our cost expenditures at this point. So through August, at least solid. I would like to point out one modification here, one change on the revenue. And I know it's very, very hard to see, but near the bottom, it suggests that there was about $35,000 received as a gain on disposal of fixed assets. That's actually not the case. We didn't sell anything or get rid of any fixed assets. It should just show up under miscellaneous revenue. So the numbers are right, just the categorization is wrong. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer on the financials.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Otto? Yes.
What is our interest rate, do we know? I noticed we had an adjustment because of the interest rate, but what is our interest rate and who pays the interest? Is this the California Revolving Fund, or how do we do this?
Oh, boy.
Sorry. didn't mean to-
I don't know entirely, because there is part that is interest earned on, say, our reserves, and that is handled through the Treasury. And then we have, on our bonds, it's through US Bank and however they're working through there. So I'm not exactly sure, who we earn that interest from.
One of the reason I bring this up is we've done it with some of the other JPAs, we've talked about it. There's 3 or 4 regionally headquartered banks that will beat the LAIF rate, the revolving fund at the state. And I would be interested if we would, to look into some of these banks and see if they'll give us a better interest rate, because interest is pretty good right now. And when the banks can beat the state, it actually helps our own economy, and we are all about trying to help our economy now. I don't know how we would go about making that suggestion.
Well, and I'll
know
talk
the
with the
legal
treasurer. I know that certainly on our bonds, there's the other issue of arbitrage, where if we're earning more interest on our bonds than what we're paying, then there's a differential that we would have to pay back to the feds. And so I'll work with the treasurer to figure out, is there any way that we can optimize and earn more interest without putting ourselves into a liability position of having to pay some of that back?
And US Bank is not regionally headquartered, so the dollars are going somewhere else.
Even beyond using regional banks, who watches our investments?
It's the Placer County Treasurer.
Organizationally,
Yeah,
or do we just give it to the county and it goes through their normal
yes,
bonding? Okay.
correct.
Have we ever thought, has WAPM ever thought about establishing an investment committee of the board to look at that and maybe change it?
I don't think your board has brought that up before, but if your board's interested, we could certainly.
I'm more for adding more work to this board.
I bet you are.
We're both going off the board.
Right.
Yeah.
You seconded, right? No, I know in the city, we made those, we have a FIAC, a committee of residents. And there's a heck of a difference in the interest and returns that we're getting now than we were. And it's a matter of what funds you choose, what management firm you choose to handle part of your portfolio and so on. So, a city is generally got a lot more money out, earning money, than we do, but it's still, you brought up a good point.
Yeah, we are going independent from the county, and I know before the county always just, that they do it the way they do it, but I'd be interested in us maybe doing some pursuing and seeing if maybe we can get a better deal, especially if it's a local bank, and especially if we're trying to do this economy.
I think it's a good idea. We'll definitely make a note and do some research on it.
And Roseville can give you, if you want, or who the banks are.
Great? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Sorry, take that sideways.
No, that's great. Okay, 7C, monthly tonnage reports.
Yes, good evening, Chairwoman Landon. Good evening, Board Directors. Tonnages are tracking pretty close to the projections, save for the MSW tonnage. There was a decrease compared to the expected rate. We did see a similar dip last year in September 2023, and this is mostly seen from our municipal haulers. That was expected. Last year, it seemed like customers kind of made up the difference of self-haul, mom and pops, weekend warriors. Perhaps the summer, very hot September pushed them away. So we're still tracking it at this time, still early in the fiscal year, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from your board. Any
questions? All right, moving on to the facility projects update.
Thank you again, Chairwoman Landon. If I may, I'd like to skip down to Module 6. Scott covered most of the FCC project. For Module 6, staff did submit a work plan to the California Water Board for installation of subsurface water mitigation measures due to the presence of water in that area, most likely from originating from the Module 5 and 13 separation liner area. This side project is not expected to affect the finalization and approval of the Module 6 overall project. For that project, notable upcoming construction items that are being done now is the final leak detection testing of the entire module and the placement of the operations layer. So that's the dirt layer that will be the direct separation between the rest of the module and the first lift of trash itself. That construction is expected to complete sometime early to mid next month. In regards to our biofiltral sewer pilot project, we are wrapping that up. We have one more sample week to collect. We are playing around with biofiltral on some new processes to further clean up the water quality. That includes recirculation of the effluent back into the system to further work out the organics and the contaminants that we are targeting, as well as adding a carbon filter downstream to further clean it up, and we're seeing positive impacts to that. So in the coming weeks, we'll be finalizing a report and submitting it to the SPWA for consideration for our overall compliance as we move forward. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from your board.
Any questions? All right, thanks, Will. Moving on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they'd like to pull off consent? Okay, anyone in the public have anything they'd like to pull? All right, then do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, moved by Director Alvord, seconded by Director Carl Skint. All those in favor?
Aye.
And item 9A, Sac State Carlson Center work orders.
Thank you, Chairwoman Landon. Tonight for your board, I have an update on our partnership with Sac State and the Carlson Center. And staff are recommending that your board authorize 2 work orders for works to be done this year regarding the circular economy here at the WATMA. So the first work order is continuing the Circular Economy Innovation Competition for its 3rd year. Last year, as part of the work for the Carlson Center, was to create a sustainable model for repeating this competition on a year-over-year basis, and we're happy to report that it looks like we've created a sustainable model for those who were judging, so Director Halden and Director Alvord last year. Our winner this year was an Indiana-based startup where all of their founders are actually from California. They take cardboard waste. It's a company called Fiber Global. They take cardboard waste and transform it into a very similar product to MDF that can be used in, construction, building tables like these, and other things like that. They currently have 2 plants out of Indiana. One was a pilot study plant, and now they have a full-fledged plant out in Indiana. They're very eager, and we continue to have conversations with them that luckily our timelines are lining up for when we'll be able to welcome businesses and manufacturers on site. They are very, very interested in expanding to the WATMA's site. So we're really excited about that. Just to give a brief update on them, because they unfortunately could not make it tonight. But we're recommending that we continue the competition. I have increased the amount of the award to be given, so we can have a first place and a second place prize for that competition. And I'm happy to answer any questions that your board has on that.
Hey, any questions? Yes.
What happened to our worm winner?
Our worm winners, well, they're the fly winners. So the fly winners, AgGen, I'm really pleased to report that, they are still continuing that innovation. They've actually added a few additional patents. So when they won that competition 2 years ago, I guess a year and a half ago, they had, I believe, 5 patents. They've applied and received a few more on some of their innovations. They're continuing to work on that through pilot studies at Davis. One of the winners, Rosh, is currently in graduate school at Columbia University where they applied for and were awarded a $100,000 grant through Columbia's Venture Fund program. And so they've managed to get a significant amount of capital from that. And they're still continuing. Amir is still a student at UC Davis right now, and so they're still continuing their innovation. Still doesn't have a car, and so it's hard to travel to the WATMA, but we've kind of expressed to them that as soon as they're ready to bring their units onto our site, we'd be happy to let them test our material and things like that.
So their full intention is to come here?
Yes, full intention is to come here as soon as they're ready to. The timing is a bit unfortunate, but we're very happy that they're still continuing their innovation and seems to be trending well.
So I think that's an important element of our judging, is that it's something that we can actually do here.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So
I will add too to that point as well, the second place winner that we had, EcoBuilder, they are actively working with the authority in some proof of concept technologies that tie in a little bit to the second work order that I'll mention a bit. Right now they're having trouble finding a space where they can test out their innovation. And that's something that the WATMA is looking into, is creating a temporary lab where we can be able to provide a physical home site for them to continue their innovation, because they've also received some additional funding for their technology as well, which is very exciting.
Great, other questions? Okay.
And with that, I'm happy to dive into the second work order and talk a little bit more about that. I'm thrilled. We have Laura Gonzalez from Sac State's Office of Sustainability. She's a waste and sustainability analyst there and has been an integral part of the curriculum development for the College of Sustainable Development at the Placer Center. The Office of Sustainability has been a very good partner for the WATMA and our increasing conversations with Sac State. So the second work order that staff is recommending that your board approve this evening is the creation of a WATMA Innovation Lab. When in the original master services agreement that was signed with Sac State and the Carlson Center, it envisioned this as the innovation competition was sort of phase one. Moving into something like this is phase two of what that master services agreement set out to realize. The big picture of what this will achieve this calendar year is that we'll be funding faculty research devoted specifically to addressing and solving critical issues on the WATMA's campus related to both the circular economy, but also to other new and emerging issues within sustainability. And so I'm happy to pass it over to Laura to give a little bit of an overview and a presentation of what this partnership could possibly look like. So,
Great, Laura, you want to come on up?
Hi, thank you, Emily. I'm Laura Gonzalez. I'm the Waste and Sustainability Coordinator at Sac State. Do we have the slides, or should I just talk about? Okay, I'll give a second.
are we able to see them on the screen, Heather?
I was texting Ryan, and he said it didn't matter if that screen was not showing.
Okay.
But I don't know how that happened now,
Okay.
so I guess I have to check with Ryan. I have no idea.
Okay. Hold on. I'll.
I mean, it's okay.
What?
As long as the board, as the directors can see it.
No, we can't see it either.
It's
Okay.
not, and that's what I was texting Ryan about. I told him that, and he said, well, everything looks fine when he goes on there. He said, it's fine until you bring the presentation up. I have instructions, but I only have instructions for when it's working. Mhm. Yeah, that's how it came up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can go ahead. But
Yeah. I think with your amazing introduction, we can kick off this talk. The Office of Sustainability has been a partner with the Carlson Center to keep the partnership with WAPMA for the last few years. Like Emily said, we've been very successful at the pitch competitions, and we have seen great programs and initiatives come out of that, and we want to continue that partnership. But before we go into phase 2, I want to express that I'm part of the Placer Center Fellows, and I am part of, besides being the Fellows, I'm part of the Capital and Building group that is working as part of the Office of Sustainability. And when we design the Sustainable Development College, we're envisioning this to be a hub for innovation. We want to continue very similar to what we're doing with WAPMA, but use industry needs to create curriculum, create jobs, and create the skills that the community need. We're very happy to announce Sac State has a partnership with Sierra College, and we have continued to use. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, welcome. This is the agenda. We went over the history, and we are moving ahead to the opportunities and the path between SB 54 and the Placer campus. So we can go to the next slide. And the next one. And the next one. And the next one. Those are all the winners. Yeah, next one. Perfect. So we want to, like, when we start creating this college and building the new campus, we want to move forward and think forward what is coming out of the state. So we know SB 54 and the circular economy policies coming out of the pipeline at the same time that the campus is to be open. That brings a lot of opportunities for research, for grants, for funding that we can collaborate together. So next slide. Next one. Like you can see, the campus has a master plan, is willing to open in the 2028, and we want to continue the collaboration, and we have worked very hard for one of the first programs that open there will be based on sustainability, and we want to see the continue of the partnership with WAPMA to advance innovation, research, and provide solutions for your needs. So next one. For that, in the short term, we fully proposed and help, and we want to coordinate the use of the innovation lab or the small space until we get the campus ready in 2028 to start continuing with the space and helping those innovators and those programs and help you guys to achieve your goals while we're still making an impact on our students and the community. Next slide. So that's the innovation lab proposing. We want to have a space where people can continue this research, and we will have a faculty and student interns as part of that, helping you guys with any issues. The first one that came to mind was, next slide. Next one. Oh wait, we partnered all of this based on other universities, sorry. The fact that I don't have the PowerPoint got me a little out of line for the presentation, but this has been successful in other universities. We have models to continue. We are not inventing anything from new. You can see an example down the road at Sierra College when they are working with manufacturing in their labs, in their welding facilities, and in the robotics facilities, and we can do this at WAPMA as well. And we see that you guys have an opportunity for water contamination and some research. The Sac State already have an Office of Water Programs that has students and faculty always doing research and programs, and that can be an example of what can happen in that space. And through this collaboration, we will have a group of students and faculty at your disposition to help with any issues you encounter in your year. Well, with that, thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Laura?
I mean, the Innovation Lab sounds like an expensive thing. It sounds very creative. I don't know, is that something we would talk about down the road of creating this, or is it something they would just create on our site, or?
Yeah, so to answer your question, Director Albert, we're doing this as sort of we're finding an existing location on the Watma Central Campus as a temporary lab. Part of the idea behind the partnership and the efforts that we're doing is we're funding some of this faculty research as well as an intern, that part of their job duties and assignments will be to help us find grant opportunities and additional funding opportunities that will allow us to build a permanent home for more of an R&D and manufacturing lab facility, either on the Watma's eastern property or at Sac State, and so at the Placer Center.
Yeah, at the
And
Placer
so-
campus.
Yeah, and so that's part of what this year's assignment will be for this group is to focus on that additional funding beyond this, because this is just, we're just hiring or we're not hiring, we're subsidizing some faculty research and their time to be devoted to the WATMA's issues, but also to continuing this in a much larger scale that the WATMA cannot afford without that sort of additional financial assistance.
It is in the master plan for the new campus, the innovation space and the lab for industry collaboration. So that's in the plan and it will coming down the pipeline in a few years.
Would the output of this 25K subsidization amount to if you will, a lab plan identifying the requirements for what the lab needs to contain, so that ultimately you get further down the path to actually, building one or whatever? Because I'm sitting here trying to think what an innovation lab for the circular economy is, and I don't have the faintest idea, which is why you use people from the university. But is that the intent? What's the output
Yes.
of this first year?
The output of this first year is that we get that sort of backbone idea of what a permanent lab will look like by gathering this innovation council, having a faculty lead that will be basically charged with addressing this moving forward. The other part is actual practical outputs. So as Laura mentioned, one of the first issues that we're asking this innovation council to tackle is some of our issues with wastewater contamination and the pre-treatment before it goes into the sewer. We know that that's going to be a long-term problem, not just for our facility, but for facilities across the state of California and potentially across the globe as more information comes out about things like PFAS and other things like that. We're really primed where Sac State has that Office of Water Programs that they can provide that faculty expertise to us. And so not only are we getting that sort of high level overview that'll help us plan moving forward, we're also going to receive some really practical research and projects that will help us, maintain compliance and other things like that.
And that's within the 25K?
Yes.
Pretty good deal. I do have one question. Is there a typo in the item? It says initiate WATMA Innovation Lab and compensate facility. What's a compensate facility?
Faculty.
Oh, to compensate Sac State faculty.
It says faculty.
Oh, and compensate faculty. I read past this. Thank you. You didn't catch it either, did you?
Wasn't understanding.
Is there, would it be possible partway through the year to just get an update on kind of, what are some of the outputs that you've seen and what are some of the benefits that you've seen? Would it be possible to get that partway through?
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
I think it's great.
All right. Any public comment? All righty. Do we need to read these action items or take them separately?
Chair, you can take them all in one motion.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move the motion.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Director Carlson, second by Director Alvord. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, 9B.
Thank you, Chairwoman Landon. Oh, sorry, cut you off there.
No, I'm done.
Got too excited. So tonight, staff are recommending that your board approve the fiscal year 24-25 final budgets for the operating fund, closure, post-closure fund, self-insurance fund, and owner management fund as presented in exhibits A, B, and C. As noted in the staff report, your board approved the preliminary budget on May 9th of this year, and so the final budgets build off of that platform now that we've got a little more information. On page 2 of the report, which is page 88 of the overall package, a key element here is that we have been tracking tonnages, as Will noted. Up until this point, we had been tracking below our projections of the preliminary budget, so we did downgrade some of those projections. You can see those impacts in the table that is embedded in the staff report. With the exception of food waste and wood waste, we've generally seen a decline, overall tonnage decline of about 2% compared to what we thought we'd be seeing this fiscal year. And that represents about a 1.8% reduction in tip fees, or about $900,000. So $900,000 is nothing to sneeze at, but in terms of the overall operation here, it's we're able to absorb that, and we're able to reduce some costs commensurate with that. So while it represents a decline in tonnage and revenues, it's certainly nothing to be concerned about. Item 3, talking about the debt service, that's the lens in which staff looks to see how healthy we're looking and what we need in terms of tip fees. We are planning to come in at about 135%. We need to be at least 125%, so we've got a little bit of cushion there. So we're looking okay. I would like to point out that, as Scott noted in his director's report, is that we did apply for grant reimbursement of about $7 million. That is not included in the budget at this point because it's not a done deal. So should that $7 million come in, everything gets a lot rosier. But even without that, we're looking fine. We're solid. When all said and done, we will continue to contribute to the rate stabilization fund. We're projecting about $730,000. Again, pretty conservative contribution, but as you'll see on the next page, that's bringing the rate stabilization fund projected up to close to $11 million. That is something that your board can use for any legal purpose it wishes. Your board at this point has identified using that to pay off the bonds early when the first call comes. The landfill bond call is at year 5, so I think we've still got a couple years for that, but this amount here would allow us presumably to pay that off in full. We do have a number of construction projects that's listed on pages 2 and 3, so a very busy construction year. A bulk of that is just getting through the MRF construction and finalizing Module 6 construction, but we've got some others in there. Again, as Scott noted with the release of the architect RFP, we've allocated $400,000 for doing some of the initial design work and some initial construction work for making some modifications to this building to take into account space for additional staff that is coming online. We are recommending a cancellation of reserves from what's called the contingency reserve account. Normally one would look at that and the contingency is a bit of a misnomer. We typically use that reserve account for landfill related construction work, so that kind of dovetails in with the Module 6 work. With that, it's a healthy budget. Everything is looking pretty solid, but if there's anything that your board wants to talk about specifically in the budget, I'm happy to answer any of those questions.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Otto? Nope. All right, great. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the final budgets.
Second.
All right, moved by Director Alvord, second by Director Carlskint. All those in favor?
Chair,
I forgot to take public comment.
Public comment, I'd also advise a roll call vote on
Okay,
this
will
budget.
do. Is there any public comment? Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Director Carlskin,
Yes.
Director Holden,
Yes.
Director Alvord,
Yes.
Chairman Landon,
Yes. Great, thank you. 9D, MRF improvement change orders.
Oh,
C.
9C.
Sorry, I was just fast forwarding, I guess. General manager spending and signature authorities, 9C.
Thank you, thank you. Tonight, staff is bringing for your review and with a recommendation of approval, the creation of a GM spending authority and signature authority policy. This policy does not exist for WAPMA, and we would like to formalize it and give the GM spending authority of up to $50,000 for budgeted items that we can spend as we, go about our daily business, and with the intent to bring those items to the board and let you guys know what we're actually spending on this for this policy on a quarterly level. And also, it's really just as we moved from an executive director to a general manager situation, we need to change the signature authority formally from an executive director to a general manager. I think that's it. If there's any questions for me on that one.
Okay, questions? Alrighty. Do I have a motion? Public comment. Gosh, what is wrong with me? It's almost bedtime. Okay. No public comment. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve item C.
Second.
All right, moved by Director Carlskin, second by Director Halden. I can say all those in favor, right? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Now, item 9D, MRF improvements change orders.
Item 9D, thank you. As you know, we've been working through this item for several months. Tonight, staff is recommending the following items: to authorize the chair to execute the third amendment to the design build agreement and a fifth amendment to the MRF operating agreement, subject to WAPMA council concurrence with FCC Environmental Services California LLC. The second item would be to authorize the chair, and with one modification to this, the chair or the general manager, to provide some flexibility there to execute a partial exemption certificate for manufacturing and research and development equipment for the benefit of FCC Environmental Services California LLC. And then the third is to authorize the general manager, upon review and approval by WAPMA Council, the authority to execute any necessary additional future change orders to the design build agreement with FCC Environmental Services for an amount not to exceed $210,000, consistent with section 20142 of the Public Contract Code. So we can go through a little bit of the background of this. We've been working through the change orders that came to your board in May. In a rather large amount, and as we have laid everything out on the table, we came to an agreement working diligently with FCC to complete all of the change orders. Also, addition of fire suppression system at no out-of-pocket costs to the WAPMA, but there were some concessions on changing in design and also signing the tax certificate, exemption certificate. We feel like it's a extremely fair deal for both parties. We must note that the bond will be extended throughout to cover the entirety of the project. And Rob, help me out. I know I'm always missing some key points here.
That's okay. Thanks, Scott. The action before your board tonight will also enable the bonds to be reduced down to account for 3 completed project components. So significant part of this proposal.
Thank you, Rob. And with that, we're here to answer any other questions.
Okay, questions for Scott?
None?
There was a question that came up about the ADA, just from the tag, because it wasn't discussed in the tag. I was wondering if maybe you could just touch on that, why it's here. And
Sure. The ADA, we have agreed in good faith to continue discussions on the ADA requirements, whether they all need to be in this for the design build or can some of it be deferred to a later project. So we've just committed to continue those good faith discussions with FCC.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? All right, any public comment on this item? All right, bringing it back to the board. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by
Make-
Director Alpert.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Moved by Director Halden, seconded by Director Carlskint.
Yeah. Could
And
we,
is-
just a quick comment
Yes.
before we vote?
Mhm.
Just wanted to thank the staff that it's been going on a long time, and for your work on this, and thank FCC for their work on this as well. Not everybody gets what they want, and, you know, it's compromise, but we're in a partnership here, joined at the hip, so to speak. And I think we've got to work through issues and, you know, be as fair as we can to each other and get this thing done. So, thank you.
Great comments, I agree. Do I need to do this as roll call? Or no? Okay. Then all those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Moving on to item 10, WAPMA board composition discussion. Would you like to
Sure, I will.
take the stage?
take this. So we've worked very hard over the years to make WAPMA independent, which we've now done. Still working on the wrap-up of that whole process. The one thing that still hangs out over us a little bit is the makeup of our board. We've got a great board, got great board members. The city of Roseville has by far the largest flow into WAPMA, and we have one seat on the board. Doesn't seem real fair, especially since we're now independent. And so I think I would just like to have us talk a little bit more to make our board more fair, because we are independent. I feel like we should go one of two routes, and we can talk about details, but the idea is either give the largest group, since there's only 4 groups here, 2 seats, which would not be the county at this point, but could be the county down the road, or drop us down to 4 members so that we all have equal vote on it. It just feels like it's just not right for us to, you know, at some point, you know, if Roseville was to pull out partially, and the county would eventually be a big contributor, Lincoln, if Lincoln keeps growing, they'll be a big contributor, and it seems like whoever the biggest contributor is, at the end of every fiscal year, they would have 2 seats. I don't see that changing a whole lot. I don't see that being an ongoing issue all the time, but it just seems like if we're gonna have 5 members on here, whoever has 2 seats should probably be the biggest contributor, just to be fair. Weighted voting's really complex, gets a little awkward. And so I think that's just something I wish we could kind of iron out and just make it fair, make it, and again, if Roseville's not the biggest one, which is a possibility down the road, whoever is, seems like they should have the 2 seats instead of just automatically the county. So I think that's kind of where all this started, and
So as I think the guy who got this started, even Dan was here back then when this ball got rolling. So I think we're in this, you know, just kind of lay it out, all right? Any change that we want to do has to be approved by the 4 jurisdictions. And so I don't want to head down a road that's not going to be approved by the 4 jurisdictions, because then there's no point. So I think we floated the idea of a 6-member board, and you were not a fan of a 6-member board with 2 seats for Roseville and 2 seats for the county. So I don't really completely see the problem of a 6-member board, so I think that's one option. Ever since we started this conversation, I think weighted voting is not complicated. At the end of the year, how much waste was brought to this authority by each jurisdiction? And we started at that, and then, you know, threw up our hands, and then we left it, but then we threw up our hands on everything else too. So nothing else was good, and weighted voting is fundamentally fair. It's fair to everybody because it's weighted. So, and I say that as, you know, I mean, our vote in Rockland would be less if we had weighted voting. For the moment, the vote in Lincoln would be less if we had weighted voting. The vote in Roseville would be more if we had weighted voting. So I mean, I see like weighted voting as not a wild, crazy thing. We used it on the Pioneer Board for a couple of years until the little jurisdictions, you know, revolted. And it was not hard. So,
The first time, you know, on Pioneer, that weighted voting came into play, the next meeting, they eliminated it. And that was.
it wasn't that quick. It wasn't that
you-
quick.
Pardon me?
It wasn't that quick. It stayed around for a
Well,
little
yeah,
while.
but,
And Pioneer's policy was any member could invoke weighted voting. So most votes were not done by
Most-
weighted voting.
I
Yeah,
don't think
the only
come
vote
on.
that ended up being done by weighted voting was whether the agency was gonna have a 17% rate increase. And, you know, there was a big division on that. But in any event, to me, like, okay, if we wanna make that change, so to me, weighted voting makes perfect sense. If we wanted to add a member to take us to 6 votes, being 6 people is not a problem in my view. Like, that's, you know, if we're divided 3-3, the thing shouldn't pass. Like, you know, so I don't have a problem with 6. If we went to 4, you know, it just comes back to what will the 4 jurisdictions approve? And, you know, I mean, I guess I'll be blunt. I guess I don't see the county wanting to approve a 4-person board where they have 1 seat, or or a 5-person board where they have 1 seat. So, I mean, as much as there might be some logic to that, which I don't deny, the reality is they're not going to approve it. So, you know, there's no point in pursuing something that's not going to work out. So,
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I mean, right now the county has 40% of the vote. We all have 20%.
and I think that should change, Scott. That's why I raised this first with weighted voting. That would take care of it.
I'm not against that.
Okay.
I don't know how the jurisdictions will play it out. I just feel like and again, I'm not gonna be here when this happens. There's a chance Roseville may change their flow and we may not be the largest anymore at some point. Don't know that for sure yet.
We hope not.
I understand, and again, I'm not
I
gonna.
know you hope so too, that you won't leave, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to sing Kumbaya with everybody, that'd be great. But however that works out, it just seems like it would be prudent of us, and Shanti, you're not the county, you're, you know, representative, so it's not against you or Bonnie or anything. It just seems like it would be fair for us to make the board fair now, because we went independent for a reason. And this is kind of the one thing that's just sort of odd. But I don't know how we think the vote's gonna turn out on the different jurisdictions, because otherwise we're just wasting our time, so.
I mean, I personally, and forgive me, Madam Director, for this being a freewheeling, you know, back and forth here,
No,
but,
it's great.
but I personally think, I can't see how any jurisdiction would argue against weighted voting and the fairness that is inherent in that. I don't know what argument, what backflip they could do to say, oh, that's a bad idea, you know. And I'll say, it's not complicated. The numbers will be set at the end of the year. Everybody knows what it is. We could do it like Pioneer, where we just vote amongst ourselves. But if somebody wants a weighted vote, then they can get a weighted vote.
When things get dicey.
What are we trying to solve?
I think what we're trying to solve is the underrepresentation of Roseville today on this board, Dan. They are not represented.
My question is,
Lincoln down the road.
has Roseville suffered because of that?
I haven't been on the board long enough to know how the votes have gone, but I'm guessing not. But I think just if something comes up that's controversial, I would really not want the county to have 40% of the vote. And you guys are gonna be huge at some point, and you'll be those 2 seats, or however we do it.
I understand that. I also believe that regardless of your contribution, because I can show you an opposite case, regardless of your contribution, you have to rely on individuals making the right choice for their community. And I don't think the community's representative are so far different that is what is right for Roseville in reality, and the Roseville community is also right for the Lincoln community. Okay? We set up, as you guys know, a new wastewater JPA. It's got 4 people on it. The JPA only has 2 members, one of which contributes 70% of the total to 30%. And it actually requires a unanimous vote on anything important and a 3-person vote. It really requires everybody to be in favor. If you're not, then you go back and work the problem till everybody's happy. So the only time I've been involved with weighted voting, and it was an alternate, and so many times on that board I was in different positions. The only time was Pioneer, and it didn't work. I mean, it didn't do anything except get thrown out. Pioneer, by the way, has a real problem because they're looking at quadrupling the numbers of members of the JPA, which I don't know how they're going to do that. And some of those members have 2,000.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a hot mess, Dan.
It's gonna be.
But I do think in Pioneer, the reason that weighted voting should still be there is because I'll say Lincoln and Rockland are in a much different position regarding electric rates than Nevada City and Grass Valley, because both of us have cheap electricity neighbors, and Grass Valley doesn't, and those places don't. So, but I won't talk about Pioneer. But I just, I think Roseville's desire to have more representation is something that I favor because it's fair.
Or equal representation.
Not equal. I mean, you want more representation. You have to say yes to that, Scott.
I don't want the county to have 40% of the
Okay.
vote yet.
Okay. All right. You want more. Because if we go from 5 members to 4, you've got more
We all have
representation, Scott.
25% vote.
Yeah, okay. So Roseville wants more. I think they deserve more because they are the biggest provider. Maybe we could require them to make a 15-year commitment when we give them more representation on this. And then
Probably not.
Yeah, probably.
About 30 years, I'll go for it.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna pipe down. I think that there are 3 options. I'm sure there's more, but there's weighted voting, there's turning us into a 4-member board, there's turning us into a 6-member board. And if we had weighted voting and Roseville wanted to send 2 people over here, I'd be fine with that. And then each one of them have, and frankly, given past history, maybe having 2 members would be a good idea, because there was one vote that caused that the Roseville people were really mad about the Roseville representatives' vote. So maybe having another vote would prevent something like that too. So
Was that before my time?
it was before your time,
Okay.
and I'm still in shock that people complain about a 3-2 vote that the Roseville person made possible. If they had voted the way their city wanted, they would have saved you $1.5 million. So
I think the important thing for us to just talk about, since we're all now level, is to make the board more level. And I love the county. I'm not expecting anything controversial to come up where the county's gonna overbear us at all. But it just feels like if something like that was to happen, it's not fair at this point. They don't deserve 2 votes. People are,
So-
well, again, it's not at all.
I got it.
No, that problem exists on almost every JPA.
I know we have,
Yep.
the county's heavy on a lot of them.
They got
yeah,
2 on LAFCO.
I
I'd
remember.
like to get off air
at-
pollution control, so I'm fine giving up.
I remember at a Board of Supervisors meeting where supervisor who shall remain nameless, that everybody should have one representative, just one representative. Except the county, that should have two, except us. It's almost like a rule that there be two county people, but anyhow, so, Director, Chair,
Yes?
Landon, what do you think?
Well, I have a few thoughts. I mean, my perspective really hasn't changed that much. I have thought about it a lot, though. I would say, you know, I get the perspective of county having 40%. And I think if I was just taking it at face value, I would agree. I think that it's unfair to have the county have 40%. I think where my hangups are is, you know, as a county supervisor, 90% of my voters are in the incorporated cities. So Lincoln and Roseville are really those are my people. And although I represent the unincorporated area, and I know that,
Especially on this board, because.
yes, I get that. But at the end of the day, I would hope anyone in this role would approach it as, I want what's best for all of the county. I don't, you know, yes, I'm protecting, I guess, the interests of the county, but at the end of or unincorporated, I guess you could say, but at the end of the day, I really want to do what's best for everyone. And if there was a historical reason that it was like I was seeing issues arise, you know, time after time where there were concerns, then I feel like it would make more sense to me. I haven't seen that, and I feel like the board does work really well together and does have good dialogue and good tension, I would say. I think good tension it's good. And I think to Bill's point, you know, it will have, whatever gets decided is gonna have to get approved by all four agencies. And so, I mean, I would be fine going back to my board and saying, hey, these are the options that got floated. There was a 6-member board, there's this, there's this, there's this. Do it, because I'm, again, only one supervisor. I can't speak for my colleagues. So I'd be fine floating that idea and seeing if they're open to anything. Again, me personally, I just, I don't see the need or agree with it and feel like it's more of a, philosophical gesture as opposed to something that's needed. But those are my thoughts on it, so.
I do want to address, there was a former supervisor that came and spoke to us during public comment on this issue with I'm gonna leave in office, a BS comment about how you and Bonnie represent Roseville, and really you don't. You really represent Auburn, Tahoe. You represent the county, because you have to represent, you guys are the county seats here, you have to represent the unincorporated areas. That's your job on
For
this,
sure.
on this board.
The entire county, all 400,000.
Yes,
Yep,
I agree.
with the unincorporated.
It's not just our cities though, but you really are the voice for the county.
Agree.
And so you know, just because you happen to have your jurisdictions in Roseville or whatever, you really, you have to be the voice for Cindy's area and for Suzanne's area.
I'm old. I spent, I think it was 7 years on this board. There were times where we had significant problems with the county. You were with the county, potentially, and the county people wore their hat. Absolutely didn't wear the county hat. Because when you're in this room, that's the hat you're wearing. You're not really wearing a Roosevelt hat or a Lincoln hat. And I believe, because of my age and having been a Don Quixote for a long time, to no effect, why fix something if you don't have a problem? I have never seen the problem. I have talked with members that have been on this board for, in one case, 20-some years, and he can't remember a problem that was caused by, quote, the unevenness of the distribution.
I mean, Dan, I would say we have a problem. We have our largest customer preparing to take most of their garbage away from us, all right?
Because, why?
Because,
We-
I mean,
they've never brought
I don't
that
want to,
problem- They haven't brought that problem to the board.
okay, well, I think kind of Scott does, but I think he's brought the representation problem to the board.
No, that's not why they're gonna,
Well, I'm just saying, we as an agency have a problem with our biggest customer. I mean, we need to be honest about that. We have a problem with our biggest customer. And we can argue that changing the board composition isn't an answer to that problem, but we do have a problem. And we've got the representative from our biggest customer telling us that they would like to see a change. So here we are. And you know, my concern, I think the county has to be careful in the perspective they bring to this, because they're in the seat of power right now. So, you know, I mean, you guys are in, you know, you've got the power seat. So I think you have to, you know, see through the lens of others in this situation. Look, if we don't do anything, we don't do anything. But I think we have a problem, and I just don't want us to think we don't have a problem, because we do.
I think, you know, we separated WATMA to be its own independent agency for reasons even before my time, but there was a problem, and that's why we separated. This is not a do or die thing for Roseville. You know, that we're not drawing a line in the sand. I think it's just an observation that it doesn't seem fair right now. If Roseville pulls away, we're not gonna be the biggest one anymore, and it still seems fair that whoever is the biggest one, might be the county, should have a bigger vote. You know, Lincoln's gonna be growing like crazy at some point, and Lincoln will be in that seat.
Responsibly, we say. We'll be growing responsibly.
yes, we are. Only held back my life ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
Like Roseville,
it's just
responsibly growing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want, personally, I don't want you to feel like, oh, let's just do it because Roseville might, you know, we might pull out anyway. You know, who knows? I don't think this is a do or die whether we pull out or don't pull out. Yeah, it might be another reason, but it wouldn't be the real reason. I just think it's a fair thing to do. We're trying to responsibly set up our board, and the county shouldn't have 40% of the vote if they don't have the majority of the landfill anymore. There's no reason, because it's not a county organization anymore. So that's my whole point.
Yeah,
seems
it
like
never was.
Well, yeah, it kind of was.
Well, no, I mean, no,
it
it
was
was a
county staff.
JPA of four entities. It was not a,
No, I got
it
it.
might have been run by the county, just like the South Placer Wastewater Authority is not the city of Roseville.
Understand.
If you can have your staff address the letterhead on that, please. It's the South Placer Wastewater Authority.
Understand that.
So, not the city of Roseville.
Anyway, so, again, I'm not drawing a line in the sand, and if our group isn't interested in changing it, then we're not interested in changing it. It just seems like if I wasn't on this board, I would have that same opinion. If I lived in the city of Lincoln, I would have that same opinion. If I was in the county, I would probably honestly, ethically, just have that same opinion. It seems like somebody else should probably have 2 seats until the county is big enough to have 2 seats.
We'd give you 2
That's a-
seats, Scott,
that's a-
but you don't want to take 2 seats without taking one away
I
from the
don't
county.
know if Roseville really wants 2 seats versus just an equal vote.
Even if
Okay.
it's weighted.
Compromise.
Yeah.
Next thing, you do weighted voting, you know, then you end up having to have a collegiate college really do the vote, because, anyway, I don't see the issue of 2 years ago having anything to do with the percentage of representation of the board, of the member on the board at all. And I would hope that a city or the county would not make the decision to change the business model just because they don't have 2 seats or they don't have a percentage of the board. That's kind of thing that I hate and I really fight against. You know, you're either, if you're on if I'm in this seat, worried about all ratepayers. I'm worried about WAPMA being able to pay the bills. I don't think about the city of Lincoln at that point, honestly. And I expect when, I know when I'm on other boards that I don't. I just,
So by that logic, Dan, would you be okay with the county just having 1 seat like everybody else?
sure,
What's that?
yeah,
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that. I
Okay.
mean,
I think that's.
So then the only
We all feel.
place that might have a problem is the
then-
county.
Then you have to, the only problem there.
We got 3 out of 4.
A four-person board.
Right, so it gets.
You have to decide, you've got different voting pass levels depending on the item. Okay, some of them have to be unanimous,
Not many, you know.
not many.
Yeah.
We've gotten along before, and I honestly, I know our city staff would be comfortable if we went to 4. I think, again, I don't wanna make a big deal about this, but I think that's a simple way to do it. Say, we got.
It'd be a big money saver around here.
25% vote each.
No, I'm fine with that. I don't, this is like the tail that we have on our backs from when we were monkeys. This 4 or 2 people on every JPA is a vestige of 50, 60, 100 years ago,
I know. All right,
you
I'm
know?
trying to fix that in 2 months
Well,
before I'm gone.
okay, so this is,
Okay.
it's a discussion item, obviously,
Right,
because
right,
I'm a
right.
key board member, but, I am fine taking this back to my board and just kind of floating it and seeing if there is an appetite. And I'll share my perspective, but I will be as neutral as I can in the sense of just getting their feedback, because obviously I'm here to represent my colleagues as well, so I would like to know where they stand, so.
So I'll just, you know, be presumptuous like I sometimes am. So why don't you wait until you get a new board? Your new
That's
board
fine.
seat.
I am
just-
fine with that.
Just so, you know, you
I-
potentially have,
We're gonna kick the can down the road again.
well, no, just,
Yeah.
We're gonna kick the can down the road again.
no, it's not very far down the road, Scott. It's
Yeah,
just,
this was an issue
Well, honestly,
quite a while
it might
ago.
be
Scott,
better,
Scott.
it may play better for you to wait until there are new board members. That may not be the case, but
it's not
I-
kicking the can down the road. It's being smart, Scott.
I don't wanna take this back to my council. And I'm not gonna be here, I haven't been here for a while. Same way with bonding, I think, well, you have a vote with 5 of you, the next meeting, to whether you take it back. You know, the option that I think is acceptable to most people is the fact that the county goes down to 1 seat.
I think everybody would be comfortable with that.
Well,
Again, I think you're talking about the.
certainly 3 out of 4.
Well, that's true, yes. And it's so weird, huh? But it does seem like an archaic thing that we're still sticking around with, that we don't need anymore.
Yeah. And it'd be nice to clean it up. I still maintain we haven't had a problem with the way we're structured. It's just an archaic way, and it would be
But
nice.
if a problem
to-
occurs, all of a sudden it's too late. We've, you know, I think if we each had a vote, equal vote, that makes us work together better, and especially in times when times get tough, if times get tough.
okay, so, I guess since it's just discussion, we'll kind of leave it where it is and, have the conversation at the next meeting of, do I need to, if I am gonna take it to our board, do I need to have an action item here that I'm gonna do that?
No.
Okay.
As a independent board member chair, you can take something back, any member can take it back to their home jurisdiction.
Okay.
And request direction. As I think the board, as we've discussed previously, if there did happen to be a JPA amendment, it would be important for a number of technical and legal reasons that amendment be approved by this board and then distributed out to its members with the exact text,
Yeah.
so that the exact same document went out to each of the member entities if there was to be a change.
So maybe we go to our jurisdictions, float the idea of one vote per jurisdiction.
And do you want me to do that before our board changes?
Not as an official
Just as an
motion,
idea.
just as a talk to get an idea.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Okay.
Under supervisor comments
Yeah.
and discussion.
Yeah, okay. All right, that sounds good. I'm good with that.
Please wait. I mean, it's just, it's,
Well, that's-
you know you've got one new supervisor coming.
I do.
And you might have two.
We
And,
might
and I
have
just
two.
think, because the JPA amendment isn't gonna come to the current board, it would come to the future board. So that's why I think waiting till you
don't
know,
take any official vote yet, just maybe get some pulse on future.
well, maybe she can talk to the
Sort of a
candidates
Brown Act
then.
issue.
Yeah,
We have even, Lincoln has even a bigger problem. They got 3 of
Right, you've got
5
three
that are
coming
up.
on.
Every one of them is non-incumbent.
yeah.
So
Right.
they're not gonna have any
Yeah,
real position
yeah.
in it. That's scary. But anyway.
Okay, well, then with that, we will move on and go to reports from directors. Anything that any of you have to report? No?
I was thinking of bringing a homeless shelter on the campus here, but I'll
Okay.
pass on that.
All right. Any upcoming agenda items that you would like to see, other than what we just talked about? No? Okay. Then I will go ahead and call the meeting adjourned.
Thank you. It was fun, guys.
Yeah.
Like old times. see? Actually, pretty good. Yeah, I don't stand on it.